Now, it's a good rule of thumb that whenever the White House staff rushes Joe Biden out to address the nation, it can only mean one thing. He's in big political trouble.
We've all seen the images, and they put to the test two fundamental American principles. Excuse me. Neither are we a lawless country. We're a civil society.
Well, things haven't looked very civil for the weeks on campus that we've been witnessing. Now, after a night of violent clashes on its main campus and after weeks of liberal dithering, UCLA finally gave the go-ahead for law enforcement to come in and dismantle the encampment. All the creatures hiding under their umbrellas and wearing their masks, imagine how dirty those masks are, were all arrested. So regular Americans are watching this and they're asking, why did things get so out of hand? Well, tonight I'm going to tell you why. Because the people screaming, "Long live the Intifada," find support in almost every nook and cranny of these schools. And I think UCLA was just afraid of offending one of its core constituencies. Now, Democrats have also been struggling between two competing interests here. For Biden coming out too strongly against these creatures, it could hurt him against his activist base. But if he stayed silent too long, he'd lose even more voters in what I like to call normal America. Now, listen carefully to how Biden tried to thread the needle.
There is no place for hate speech or violence of any kind, whether it's anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or discrimination against Arab Americans or Palestinian Americans. It's simply wrong. There's no place for racism in America. It's all wrong. It's un-American.
It's pathetic. Now, Jewish students have been harassed. Other students have lost their schooling, graduation, etc. Police have been injured. And those responsible are the America-hating leftists. It's not rednecks from Mississippi. It's not MAGA people. It's the leftists, period. Nice try, Joe. But the sad truth is Biden just doesn't care if Jewish students are living in fear, and he certainly doesn't care about the strains on law enforcement. We're going to get into that in a little bit. If he cared about any of those things, he would have spoken out unequivocally far earlier than he did, and with real passion, with real conviction. After all, we know what Joe sounds like when he considers a crowd dangerous.
In the United States of America, people coming out of fields at night carrying torches, their veins bulging, preaching the same hate, white supremacy, chanting the same Nazi phrases, not figuratively, literally, that were being chanted in the 30s in Europe. Torches lit. Again.
Of course, he was talking there about Charlottesville. But notice Biden today didn't mention the hateful posters, the placards, those despicable chants from the anti-Israel crowd. Nothing. The only reason Biden surfaced at all this morning was because of the political fallout that was growing. A warning was issued from the island of misfit never-Trumpers.
Please, I'm trying to help you. I don't want Donald Trump to get elected, all right?
There you go.
Trying to help you. If you're too stupid to figure that out, this is not helping the people of Gaza, and this is not helping those of us who want to fight fascism in America.
We've got to ring some alarm bells. The election's 7 months out. If the polls on aggregate are to be believed, Donald Trump very well may be president in 7 months. What people are seeing when they turn on the media, they see violence and they see protests on college campuses. They see young people calling Joe Biden Genocide Joe, and it scares people.
Now, this obviously got the attention of the White House chief of staff and also, I think, the Biden campaign. The threat to Biden's reelection is so real that they decided to risk winding him up and sending him out to read prompter. And to really show you how seriously they take the situation, the White House held a meeting. They held a meeting on Wednesday of its anti-Semitism task force. Then it gave the story to Axios, its House media organ. And I love how Axios calls this a scoop. Meetings like Wednesday's are an attempt to identify concrete ways the Biden administration can address both the immediate challenges and address the long-term problem of growing anti-Semitism. Nice press release, guys. Look, this makes sense that Biden's handled it this way because his team has always considered every issue, Every problem, whether it's inflation or the border or now these protests, a comms problem. They never consider changing their stance on an issue or, heaven forbid, ever changing their policies. They never think, gee, maybe we've gone too far left.
Does the president believe that at perhaps some of these universities that higher education has gone off the rails, that, something more fundamental has gone wrong on these college campuses?
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. We believe it's a small number of students who are causing this disruption.
It's always small when it's their people. I don't know, glib words like hers, is that going to reassure anyone? To Jewish Americans, it doesn't feel like a small number of people. They're terrified. And will Joe Biden's hostage tape speech today give voters a sense that things are going to calm down anytime soon? Will this "we can message ourselves out of any problem" approach work? Certainly work this late in an administration when the nation's facing serious challenges? Well, it doesn't look like it. Things are looking very grim tonight for Joe Biden. The website 538 compiles a historical list of presidential approval ratings, and at 38.9%, he's lower than both H.W. Bush and Jimmy Carter at the same exact point in their presidencies. And remember, both of those men lost re-election. I think by now Americans know that Biden's just a barely functioning figurehead of a president. His words certainly don't mean action.
Has there been any follow-up, or not follow-up, has there been any outreach from the White House to any of the campuses, administrators, leaders on these campuses?
I don't have anything to read out at this time.
Well, after vilifying Americans who support President Trump as Nazis and extremists, Biden tries to pretend that he values dissent.
We are not an authoritarian nation where we silence people or squash dissent. Dissent is essential to democracy. There's the right to protest, but not the right to cause chaos.
Fact check, false. To his party, the right to dissent exists for one side and one side only, their side. Everyone else needs to be surveilled, constrained, geofenced, tracked, because they probably support the man they're trying to put in jail before the election. And let's face it, he's actually for silencing all the Americans who feel ripped off and disrespected by Biden and his party. They're all dissenters. And if they're doing everything in their power to silence Donald Trump, which they are right now, how is that respecting dissent? And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.